One of my wife's lovers pressed a knife against my throat, his grin oozing malice. "Now you're a proper cuckold," he sneered. "Sit back and watch while we enjoy ourselves with her." Their laughter echoed in the room, and my wife smirked, her voice venomous as she said, "Watch, you bastard. Maybe you'll finally learn how to treat me." But they underestimated me. They had no idea what I was capable of. That night, I tracked down the first one and used a bat to send him straight to the ICU. For the others, I had far more sinister plans in mind. The blade was icy against my skin, its sharp edge nicking just enough to draw a bead of blood. Bound to a chair in my own living room, the leather straps bit into my wrists and ankles. Victor, the largest of the three, towered over me, his sneer brimming with arrogance. Emil and Marco stood on either side of him, their smug laughter filling the air. Across the room, Sophia, my wife of a decade, lounged on the couch as though this were a casual get-together. She sipped wine, utterly at ease, her black dress hugging her figure. Her high heels dangled from one foot, her posture exuding confidence. She tilted her head and smiled, a cruel curl of her lips that cut deeper than any blade. "Now you're a real cuckold," Victor hissed, his tone mocking. "Enjoy the show while we have our fun." I ground my teeth, my pulse thundering in my ears, but I didn't break. Sophia leaned forward, her gaze locking onto mine. "Watch, bastard," she spat. "Maybe you'll finally figure out how to treat me right." Their laughter reverberated through the room as they basked in their assumed dominance. But what none of them realized, what they couldn't possibly anticipate, was that this wasn't the conclusion of my story. It was the prelude to theirs. Sophia and I had once been the kind of couple people envied. She was magnetic, sharp, striking, and ambitious. We first met at a luxury hotel in Vienna, where I managed operations and she coordinated events. The chemistry between us had been instant, the connection almost electric. Within a year, we were married and building a life together in Zurich. But as time passed, cracks began to form. My demanding job kept me at work for long hours, and Sophia grew restless. She thrived on admiration and attention, something I could no longer provide consistently. I noticed the signs. The furtive phone calls, unexplained nights out, the way she withdrew when I reached for her. I convinced myself it was a phase, something we could mend. But deep down I knew. 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head. Late one night, while Sophia was in the shower, her phone buzzed. The name Marco lit up the screen. I hesitated, guilt and curiosity warring within me, but in the end, I gave in. The messages were explicit, brimming with promises of illicit rendezvous and forbidden thrills. Worse, Marco wasn't the only one. Victor and Emil had their own damning threads, each more incriminating than the last. Sophia wasn't just cheating. She was living a double life. The next evening, I confronted her. I laid out the evidence. Screenshots of texts, hotel receipts, and photographs from the private investigator I'd hired. Sophia didn't deny it. Instead, she laughed. "So, you've been playing detective?" she sneered, pouring herself another glass of wine. "How pathetic. How could you do this?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. She shrugged dismissively. "Because you're dull, Elias. You bury yourself in work and ignore me. Victor, Marco, Emil, they know how to make me feel alive." Her words cut me to the core, but I refused to crumble. "You're throwing away everything we've built," I said coldly. "For what? A fling? A thrill?" Her smirk deepened. "And there's nothing you can do to stop me," she said, her tone dripping with scorn. 2 nights later, they showed up at my home. Victor sat in my chair, his boots resting on the coffee table as though he owned the place. Marco and Emil stood beside him, casually sipping beers. Sophia sat between them, laughing at some private joke. The sound of Victor's mocking laughter pierced through me like a knife to the heart. Before I could react, he stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the doorway. "Sit down," he ordered, his voice heavy with menace. I stayed where I was, my voice calm but firm. "Leave my house." Victor's lips curled into a cruel grin. "You're not in charge here," he said, pulling a knife from his pocket. The blade gleamed under the overhead light, sharp and menacing. "Now sit down." Anger surged through me, my fists clenched at my sides. But outnumbered and cornered, I knew resistance would be futile. Slowly, I sank into the chair they forced me into, my body stiff with defiance. Emil wasted no time tying my wrists and ankles with thick leather straps, binding me tightly. Victor leaned in, his breath hot against my face. "Now you're a proper cuckold. Sit tight and watch while we enjoy ourselves." Sophia, sitting comfortably on the couch, gave a cold, calculating smirk. Her eyes bored into mine as she added, "Watch closely, bastard. Maybe you'll learn something useful." The humiliation was excruciating. Their mocking laughter reverberated through the room, each jeer stabbing at what little pride I had left. But while my body was restrained, my mind was racing. I committed every detail to memory, their words, their gestures, their smug expressions. I vowed that each one of them would pay for this night. Victor was the first to face retribution. I studied him, learning his habits and routines. He worked as a bouncer at an upscale nightclub, and every night he walked alone to his car parked in a dimly lit back alley. The location was perfect, dark, deserted, and silent. One night, I waited in the shadows, a baseball bat concealed under my coat. As Victor approached his car, he spotted me and let out a laugh. "What's this, Elias? You think you're going to scare me?" I didn't reply. Instead, I swung the bat with every ounce of strength I had. The first blow struck his ribs with a sickening crack, and he crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. But I wasn't done. Strike after strike, I unleashed every ounce of rage and humiliation he had caused me. When I finally stepped away, he was barely conscious, his body broken and battered. I left him there, knowing someone would find him soon. He would survive, but he'd carry the scars of that night for the rest of his life. Next were Emil and Marco, and their punishments would be far worse. I had gathered every piece of incriminating evidence, photos, text messages, and videos from the hidden cameras I'd installed in the house. Emil, a man who prided himself on being a devoted husband and father, was about to lose everything. I sent everything to his wife, ensuring she saw every sordid detail. She filed for divorce the next day, taking their children and half of his assets. The scandal cost him his job, leaving him penniless and alone. Marco, a rising star in the art world, had meticulously crafted a reputation that I shattered in a single day. I leaked the evidence to the media, exposing his deceit for all to see. His name became synonymous with disgrace. Galleries blacklisted him. Clients abandoned him, and his once promising career was reduced to rubble. As for Sophia, I handed her divorce papers and froze all our joint accounts. I left her with nothing, no money, no home, and no allies. The woman who once mocked me was now begging for mercy, her glamorous life turned to ashes. Months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, gazing at the city lights shimmering in the distance. Victor was still in the hospital, his injuries a constant reminder of his downfall. Emil worked menial jobs to survive, his family and career gone. Marco had fled the city, his name a stain on the art world. And Sophia, she was a shadow of her former self, her once vibrant life reduced to dust. Revenge isn't just about destruction. It's about making them live with the consequences of their actions. As I sipped my drink, a thought crossed my mind. Betrayals don't have to break us. Sometimes, they forge us into something stronger. And stronger I had become.